Welcome again, everyone, to the first in two sessions of our fall mini conference. Tonight, we are very excited to welcome Pathfinders for Autism. Nikki Stokes is their Resource Center Coordinator, and she joined Pathfinders for Autism in February of 2022. She is responsible for the daily intake of questions, concerns, comments from parents, caregivers, educators, professionals, and individuals with autism spectrum disorder. She has 15 years of career experience in Baltimore City as a first responder and emergency call taker. She is also the mother of an autistic son and has assisted with trainings, volunteered as a community advocate, and navigated through medical and educational systems for his care. She is a creative problem solver, a master crochet instructor, knitter, and certified Reiki practitioner, and she was born and raised in Baltimore City. So welcome. And Ms. Stokes, I'm going to do one more slide before you get started, just to let our folks know some kind of session norms and things like that. So we are very excited to have all of you here for this session on autism spectrum disorder from Pathfinders from Autism. We understand that you may have some individual concerns that might be going on at the schoolhouse level or need community resources for your student. I do want to remind you that we are recording. So if you do have a question that you put in the chat, or when we get to questions, and ask that you refrain from saying names or specific like locations or schools. If you do have an individual concern, what you see on the screen here is a QR code that you can access through your phone. And I'll also put the link in the chat that you can sign up for us in the Family Support Center to contact you. I do have some of my partners from the Family Support Center on. My name is Marcy Torshin. I'm a program coordinator in the office. We have Yvette Young, who is a social worker in our office. And we also have Angela Salmaran, who is our bilingual parent liaison. One of our colleagues, Beth Hare, could not be here tonight, but she is an instructional specialist with the office as well. So I'm going to put that link in the chat, and then I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Stokes.
Awesome. I was not expecting that full bio. Thank you everyone for joining. Let me go ahead and get my screen up for you. Okay. Can everyone see everything okay? Just thumbs up or not? All right, awesome. So, good evening. Again, my name is Nikki Stokes. I am the Resource Center Coordinator at Pathfinders for Autism. You covered all the basics of what I usually do on my intro, so no need to go through all that. So a little bit about Pathfinders. Pathfinders for Autism is a nonprofit organization. It was started in 2000 by parents just like me. They were looking for resources for their children. Our mission is simple: to improve the lives of individuals with autism and the people who care for them. We accomplish this through a variety of programs, services, all which are free of charge to our families and individuals seeking services. So we do not do direct support services, but our services are broken down into three components. Number one is resources. We have a provider directory, and if we have time at the end, I can go through the website and kind of walk you through that. If you're looking for anything from a specialized dentist or barber, many parents know you can't just take your child or loved one to a regular dentist. It helps if they're familiar with our families. And so we have a provider directory with over 5,000 providers that are listed, and you can research that through zip codes. It's on our website, so you can actually access that yourselves. We also do workshops and webinars. We hire professionals, whether it's a behavior specialist. We have potty training seminars. We've done even Social Security seminars, how to apply for that, where we have professionals that come in and do live webinars and workshops. These also live on our website. Once they're done, most of the time they're recorded, and so you can access those at your leisure. And then recreation. Recreation is probably one of my favorites. This is when we create opportunities for families and individuals, all ages, to come out, engage, partake of opportunities that you may not normally consider. Some of those activities include the aquarium, the science center, where we actually buy out those facilities for the evening. We have you register. It's free of charge. Anyone who's ever been to the aquarium knows the aquarium is $50 a ticket. First time I took my son to the aquarium, we were there for 5 minutes. Aquarium doesn't give refunds and they don't let you come back in. So needless to say, after that 5 minutes, we had lost $200. So this is an opportunity for you to come out with your loved ones. Again, not just children, family members of all ages are welcome. And you come out and you get to experience it. You last for 5 minutes, fine. If you need to go outside and take a break, come back, you can do that, because on those nights, it's open to just our families. Those activities and recreational activities are listed on our website. It's simple. You just go fill out a form, register. A lot of them, we do have drawings, like the aquarium right now, we have 5,000 families registered, 5,000 individuals. And so needless to say, we can't host all of them on one night. So we do random drawings so families can come. Sorry, trying to move one of these screens around here. So right now, stats are showing 1 in 36 children in the United States are affected by autism spectrum disorder. That's 1 in 23 boys, 1 in 88 girls. In Maryland, it's 1 in 43. You break that down, it's 1 in 27 boys, 1 in 116 girls. Right now, it's 5 times more prevalent in boys, and we don't know why. So why do I care? As you all know, I have a now 19-year-old son who is heavily impacted by his autism. My son's nonverbal. He used a communication device to talk. He is impacted by a sensory processing disorder. And so he is why I care. It's not when and if, it's, you're going to come into contact with someone in the community that's autistic, and all of us here are parents and caregivers. So Roman is my reason. So what is autism? Autism is a neurological developmental disorder affecting multiple areas of the brain and body. Currently, there's no known cause and there's no known cure. There are treatments currently that families are using for their loved ones. Early intervention is definitely number one. As you can see, some of the others are listed here. There are different therapies: physical therapy, occupational therapy, speech, behavior interventions, medications, biomedical, special diets. And some individuals need supports and services their entire lives. Again, I also preference that a lot of times my experience is my experience with my son. So I always say I'm looking at it through Roman's goggles. So I'm going to show you a video, and actually I'm going to go back one time. Okay. So when we were coming up with curriculum for our trainings and presentation, there was a mom who was sharing her experiences in ERs and hospitals with her son. And so she has given us permission to use this. And the autism community, as you all know, is kind of small, well-versed, everyone kind of knows each other. And so I've actually had the opportunity to become friends with this mom. And so a lot of the issues that I was going through with my own son, she was as well. As I would tell all parents, one of your greatest resources is going to be your community, other families that are going through those same milestones, maybe a little ahead of where your child is. That's where you're going to find a lot of your resources and a lot of that personal experience. So I'm going to show you a video about Dev.
You don't want to be on camera? Usually you like it. You want to make a video? Look, there's your happy face. Mommy. going. Wait, wait.
Okay, so what are some of the things that you all noticed about Deb? If it's easier, you can type your answers in the chat, or if you want to go ahead and just yell them out, that's fine. I think it's enough in here, we should be okay.
He's a little bit shy.
Mhm.
He doesn't like to be viewed like my grandson. He doesn't want an audience.
Mhm. Did anyone notice how he communicates? Was he verbal?
He's nonverbal.
Okay, that's good. So now I'm going to give you another example, because as we all know, autism is a spectrum. And once you come into contact or met one person with autism, you've met one. And so this is Grant. Oh, I think, okay, we're gonna have technical difficulties. Technology is gonna fail me this go around. I'll try one more time. Okay, this one isn't gonna play. Well, Grant was an adult and he was actually giving us a story about how he got stopped one night while driving a car. A police officer pulled him over and he was talking about how anxious he was. And so it was an effort to show you two completely different individuals that are autistic and what that can look like in the community. So this is a very outdated diagram of the traditional autism spectrum model. And the reason we like to use this is because we have adults that call in that self-identify as having Asperger's syndrome. So that's not a category that we use currently, but we have parents that when their children were diagnosed, that's the diagnosis that they were given. And it's also, again, like I said, we have an adults that self-identify with Asperger's. And so as you can see, the traditional model usually goes from classic autism. And when you say that, people think of individuals that it's more severe, they need more supports. We have PDD-NOS, which is usually right in the middle where there are characteristics of autism, but not enough to get an official diagnosis. And then Asperger's, people usually think of as being more mild, individuals having a high IQ, and fewer supports needed. This is a more current dated diagram, and this was actually designed by a self-advocate. And so if you look at it, it individually goes through some of the skills such as motor skills, language, sensory, and how they're affected. One of the ways she likes to describe it is it's almost being like dials. So if you think of language as a dial or motor skills as a dial, so you may have someone that's autistic where their verbal or their language skills may be very low, but their executive functioning skills are very high. So it just depends. Again, it's a spectrum and individuals can fall anywhere along that spectrum. So when interacting with a person with autism, one of the things that you hear us say over and over is that when your anxiety is increased, your ability to process goes down and behavior increases. So as anxiety increases, processing goes down, behaviors increase. So the main areas of impact are communication, sensory processing, social interactions, and behaviors. Exercise time. So did anyone see on the last slide where it said raise your right hand? Okay. Now, I couldn't see everybody, but I didn't see anybody raise their hand. Anybody want to tell me why they didn't raise their hand? Anybody?
I didn't know.
No, no
No,
clues.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was an
Okay.
executive function. I just thought it was just direction as a part of your slide.
Okay. What would have made you raise your hand?
If you said it,
Okay. So that is an example of how communication is received differently. Because it was a direction. That's how it is for a lot of our kids. Now, if I had said, raise your hand, my son wouldn't have done it because he doesn't always understand verbal communication. But if I modeled it and said, Roman, raise your hand, he would understand that's what I wanted him to do. So that's just an example of how communication is received differently and is processed differently. And it's okay, don't worry, nobody ever raises their hands in this presentation. Like even when I give it live, the only people that raise their hands are people who've seen the presentation before. So this is another activity that we usually do in person, but we're gonna do our best to do it virtually. So there is a book by a nonverbal autistic young man called The Reason I Jump. And he often explains that when trying to answer questions, he has all of these answers in his head and he has to fish and find all of them individual. So imagine asking your child something simple like, what is your homework? I like dogs. I'm hungry. So this is what it's like for some of our kids. The answer's in there somewhere, but they've got to go through all of these before they can find them. That's part of their processing time. So when it comes to communication, you try to remember that both verbal and nonverbal communication exists. So that could be writing it down or modeling it. Some individuals may be verbal, but unable to sustain a conversation. Some only cite scripts or use echolalia. So my son, again, because he's nonverbal, he scripts, but he scripts using movies. So there was one time he wanted dessert and his dad wouldn't give it to him. And so there's a spot in a movie called Over the Hedge where he calls the character the devil. And so whenever his dad doesn't give him what he wants, he would grab his iPad and he would play, you're the devil, you're the devil, you're the devil. So that is him using a phrase to communicate his feelings. I have a coworker whose son actually scripts movie titles. And so you're thinking he's going back and forth, but literally he's giving you an entire scene from Toy Story, which if you didn't know, you wouldn't know that's what it was. It would seem like he was pretty charming. Some may use repetitive or idiosyncratic language. An example would be, I met a young man where he never called pants legs. They were called leg sleeves, but his mom knew that was his word for pants. Alternate modes of communication, such as an iPad or assistive technology, even text picture exchange cards. Some individuals, because they're visual learners and communicators, PEC symbols are fantastic for them. My son actually had a wallet that he would carry around with him, and I'm sure some of the teachers have used these in their classrooms. Some individuals may only understand direct language. Don't say in 10 words what you can say in 5. Direct language. I think sometimes we get caught up in flowery language and we want to be very descriptive. Sometimes you can knock it out quick, direct, that's better. Some individuals may be able to speak, but their answers may seem blunt or tactless. I've learned to never ask my son if I look fat in a dress, because if I do, he's gonna say yes. Some are unable to understand sarcasm or metaphors. If you think about sarcasm, it's literally saying the opposite of what you mean, expecting someone to know that's not what you mean, and then getting upset when they don't know the difference. So again, direct language. What do you think someone told this young man?
To sit in the chair.
Okay. Any other guesses?
They gave him a directive that he did not want to follow.
They told him that he should have a seat.
Take a seat. You tell my son to take a seat, he's gonna pick it up and walk out of the room. So as a teacher with 15 kids in a class, can you imagine what that would look like? So again, what could we have told him that would have been more direct and less room for him to misinterpret?
Please sit in the chair.
Please
Very
sit. Please sit. Please sit in chair. Just
Very
please sit in chair. Or just sit in chair. Keep it simple. The less
Yep.
words, the more they can comprehend.
What do you think this one was?
Hit the road.
Hit the road. Yes. So again, we want to keep language as clear and concise as possible. So receptive and expressive language may require additional processing time. So we have what is called a 20-second rule. Anytime you're asking a question, you should allow at least 20 seconds to receive the information and process it. And that may seem like it's not that much, but I'm going to do a timer so we can see exactly how long 20 seconds is. Starting now. 10. That's 20 seconds. How many questions can you ask someone in 20 seconds? Typical morning at my house. Where are your shoes? What's taking so long? Where are you going? Do you want to be late for school? Didn't I tell you to do this already? Where's your brother? Where's your shirt? Why is your shirt wrinkled? And every single time you ask a question, that 20-second time frame starts over. So it doesn't seem like it's a lot, but it's a lot to process. And it's 20 seconds is not a short amount of time. And it definitely can take some practice. But even if you have a timer, sometimes just give yourself, ask a question, give them 20 seconds. Processing is, some individuals are hypersensitive to sights, sounds, touch. With my son in particular, the tags on his clothes were very sensitive. Pressure, some individuals don't want to be hugged, don't want to be touched. If they have or experience hyposensitivity, individuals can be hypersensitive or hyposensitive. And so the idea is to, what we perceive as normal amounts of light and sound may be too much for their system to process. So as you can imagine, going to the dentist, that can be super sensitive because again, you have the lights and you have sounds. So all of those things are affecting the anxiety levels. As the anxiety goes up, processing goes down, and then you're going to see an increase in behavior. As I just said, sensitivities to sound, light, and touch. Some individuals are easily overstimulated, some are understimulated. Some individuals have difficulty with body awareness and in space. My son, sometimes he doesn't understand personal space or distance. I've worked with students that say they're floating, so they have a difficult time finding their self in space and knowing where they are in relation to the things around. This is an example of what sensory overload can feel like. See some of our children, students, and loved ones.
Six, 7, 9. Not naughty. I'm autistic. And I just get too much information.
Another core area that's affected is social interactions. So individuals may not be able to make eye contact. One of the things we had to learn with our son is either you want him to look at you or you want him to listen to you. He's not going to be able to do both. And we're in a space and we're in a society where eye contact is often seen as a form of respect. And so we had to learn the processing and the ability to focus that my son has. He can look at you, but he's not going to hear anything that you say to him. So we had to learn, like, if he's looking off, talk to him and then ask him what he's hearing, and whether he uses his iPad or whatever, he would be able to communicate what it was that we expected from him. Some individuals may not pick up on social cues or body language, may not understand personal space again. Some might be huggers or kissers. Some individuals may lack social or emotional reciprocity, may not respond appropriately, may laugh or giggle at inappropriate times, may not develop peer relationships, but also may want to. Bad behaviors. So all behaviors should definitely be seen as communication. Rule out pain. My son, we had an incident where he was running around banging his head on stuff. He would bang his head on his brothers. And eventually we found out he had sinus issues. So that head banging was him trying to communicate how he was feeling and what was happening at that time. So we always try to advise, rule out pain. Obsessive tendencies and impulsive activities, redefining that. So as we talk about that anxiety piece, sometimes it's not obsessive tendencies, it's routine. Rewatching the same video over and over. There's no anxiety because they know exactly what's happening. It's routine. Whereas changes and things like that can cause an increase in anxiety. So next, elopement and wandering. 71% of deaths related to wandering are often by drowning. We don't know what it is about the water that attracts our children. It could be the light glistening off the water. Water gives deep pressure. For individuals experience sensory overload, the sound is muted when you're underwater. 26.7% of all children with IDD elope, and 49% of children with autism spectrum disorder elope. And then 1/3 or more cannot communicate their name, address, or telephone number. The recommendations for caregivers and staff when it comes to eloping: personal IDs. There are many organizations that have tags, the removable tattoos, bracelets that you can QR codes that you can scan. We always advise, if your child elopes, contact police immediately. If you find them, you can always call back. Alerting friends and neighbors. We also have available on our website a safety kit that you can download that has safety information, because at the height of an emergency, there are going to be tons of information that you forget. As a 911 call taker, I've had parents call in that can't remember their own address at the time. So if you have that information written out, you can just have it on the fridge, you can have it in your glove compartment of your car, just to have it ahead of time. And if you are able to, teach your children about water safety. So some helpful tools. Schedules. Schedules, again, decrease anxiety because our children know what's coming next. Picture exchange cards are the PECs. Social stories to map out whenever my son had a new appointment or there was a doctor's appointment, we did a social story. This is what's gonna happen. This is who you're gonna see. If you can put dates and times in it, that's fantastic. Fidgets. Fidgets are amazing sensory toys. We actually had a little bag that we would take wherever we went. So we had sunglasses in case the lights were too bright. We had headphones in case it was too loud. Chewing gum is a great fidget. Play-Doh, they actually have fidget spinners. All of those help to give children an individual sensory input when they're overwhelmed. These are some apps. This one may not still be available on the website because apps change so quickly, but whether it's Google Store or iPad, iTunes Store, there are tons of free apps that you can try to help with scheduling and even picture exchange cards as well. Timers. Timers are fantastic. I love the timers that show how much time is left. These are fantastic when you have individuals that have difficulty transitioning to the next activity. When it's time to put the iPad up, if I just rip that iPad out of his hand, it's going to be World War III. So instead, we set a timer. I can say, Roman, you've got 10 minutes left. Roman, you've got 5 minutes left. The bell goes off. It took us some time to get there, but eventually when the bell got turned off, he would go and put his iPad away. So timers are fantastic for transitioning. So things to remember. I know that was tons of information, but if there's takeaways, I think these are the most important. Remember the 20-second rule. Allow 20 seconds when you ask a question for them to receive the information, process it, and answer. Sit down, not take your seat. Use direct language. That way it's not misinterpreted. Don't take 10, 15 words to say what you can say in 5. Again, anxiety increases, processing goes down, you're going to see an increase in behavior. Remember, there's more than one way to present information. So whether it's written, verbal, or even modeling, what that looks like. When you can, minimize sensory distractions. We live in a sensory unfriendly world. So you're not always going to be able to do that, but if you can provide accommodations that help, that's fantastic. Remember, behavior is communication. And when you can, be flexible. As a parent, there's one I always throw in, and that is show yourself grace. This is a marathon. Roman's journey may not be your child's journey. And you have to learn as you go. You don't know what you don't know. So definitely show yourself grace. Presume intellect. I like to remind people, just because my son's nonverbal does not mean he doesn't understand. I have a little Amazon hacker on my hand. So presume intellect. This is all of my contact information. I believe they will be issuing a set of slides as well. So if you don't get it now, you'll be able to get it later.